Welcome to MashTalk, the show where we catch up with the most interesting people in tech. I'm your host, Mashable tech editor Pete Paschal. This is a very special edition of MashTalk. I'm super excited. We're here at CES 2019. I'm talking now with Ray Soto from USA Today, who is there. Well, you can tell us who you are.
Yeah. So Ray Soto, I'm the director of emerging tech. Essentially, I'm a former video game developer who is now working within this great media organization to figure out how we can combine technology to storytelling.
Right. So new ways of storytelling. There's been a lot of focus on that in the last several years, and sort of like I've seen stuff, everything from gesture control, obviously like stories format has been a big thing, certainly for us it has. But I know you're very interested in AR and VR, all right?
I am. You know, we all see the opportunities of how we can do something different when it comes to the stories that we want to tell. What I mean by that would be examples such as the Wall project that we had worked on in collaboration with Arizona, last year. And essentially,
Tell us what that is.
So essentially, we were using virtual reality to provide users the experience of standing at the locations along the U.S.-Mexico border, and to really understand, the impacts of Trump's proposed border wall. And we worked on that project last year, and it's even more relevant now with everything that's kind of going on, and with the shutdown and on from there. So, that's one example of how we leverage virtual reality towards storytelling.
I feel like, so you're talking a little bit about VR, but also 360 video.
Yes.
So do you sort of like make a distinction between the two, or do you like it's kind of the same stuff, but you use a VR headset to watch 360 video? How do you think about it?
That's a great question. So what we do is we approach it differently, and at times there might be an opportunity to kind of fuse the two together, headset-driven 360 interactives. But the way that we approach it is it really depends on the story.
Yeah.
The visual side, does this need to be an interactive story? Does this need to be on the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift? So with 360 video, it's one of our tools that's in our box that we love to leverage, and we've done some great work with it over the past few years with Virtually There. We did a few news series that we had done for a couple seasons, but we still leverage it as much as possible. And it really just comes down to what is the story? How can we best tell it? Is it going to be 360 video, or is it going to be immersive VR with interaction?
But I think what you're sort of implying with all that is that that's all cool, like the headset stuff, it's fun, but really if we're talking about how the audience is going to, the vast majority of the audience is going to be interacting with it, they're going to be doing something with their phone, whether it's like kind of holding it up and kind of looking around, or just kind of like scrolling. Have we arrived at a point where there is a I guess necessarily a set of standards, but maybe a set of expectations about what an audience member encounters a piece of 360, like how it works and how they do interact?
Yeah, considering how quickly the virtual reality platform 360 video has gained momentum, how much things have changed when it comes to essentially the expectations that a user might have, that they're there now. That we have to meet those expectations or exceed them, and it really does come down to the story. So when it comes to a story that we're looking to tell, we understand that the greater audience opportunity might be on a mobile-driven VR experience. So let's say, for example, through the USA Today app, folks can view that as using the gyroscope to look around, kind of swiping, or even within a headset. So for us, we understand the audience opportunities, but it really does come down to the story. So if we feel as if there's more of an impact, such as the Wall project, we wanted users to feel as if they're actually standing at these different locations, with spatial audio components, with narration, getting an understanding of how tall these steel beams are for the existing walls that are currently in those locations. So we do make a distinction between the two, but we also understand that there might be a greater audience opportunity through, let's say, standalone video and swiping around. Or
What's kind of your checklist on what a story has to meet to sort of qualify to be considered for this? Obviously, highly visual, probably semi-evergreen. What else?
So for us, it really just comes down to what do we want the audience member that views our content to walk away with? And we make a distinction between, can this be a better experience as a traditional video or as a 360? And that's where we kind of start having those conversations. And we go through almost a UX design exercise in the sense of, okay, let's plan out this story. What do we think can work? Is this better in 360 video? And more often than not, we may decide, let's just use the existing tools that we have. Traditional video, that might be best for that. But there are opportunities in which we determine, do we really want the user to feel as if they're there? That there's this opportunity for an impact, the empathy, empathy machine. Folks have been talking about that with VR for a while now. And those are kind of that's the decision process that we go through as well.
And kind of, I guess there should be sort of an open-ended aspect to the information you're presenting in that it's a bigger topic, and it's like the readers almost on a choose your own adventure exploration. Like, well, maybe you want to know more about, I don't know, how tall the wall is, or how the material, or some of the political background and history of it, you know, and you're kind of like, there's all of these things are important, but, you know, rather than forcing a reader through almost like your manufactured narrative in a traditional video, they can kind of choose what they want to do.
And I think that's one of the expectations that users have when it comes to virtual reality, is that freedom to explore and discover. And those are the two words that we use for most of the projects that we work on is, you know, we want to provide that opportunity for them to feel as if they've got the freedom to take the story in that they want to take it in, to understand, you know, the issues or the narrative that we're trying to build, but provide that flexibility that they feel as if, okay, I've explored everything that's here without being forced down a single
Right.
path. You know, we've explored branching narratives, for example. You know, we've done another project, Eisenhower VR, in which a user can stand in an Eisenhower ship and go through and maybe view stories on the bridge, on the deck, fly in an F-18. But it's providing that flexibility to allow users to explore, but at the same time, bringing it back down to ensure that there's a cohesive narrative, like a narrative arc, essentially is what I'm getting at. So it's a challenge for sure, but something we're really
Start to
excited
finish on one of these projects, and they probably obviously vary in scale, but start to finish, generally what is the time frame you're looking at like that it takes to put one of these together?
So early on, our very first VR project took us, I'd say, about 8 weeks to develop from start to end. You know, and that includes the entire process of figuring out what the story is, capturing and putting everything together. Typically what we aim for, if it's going to be an immersive VR experience, we aim for anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the scope of the project. The Wall project was very different. That was about 3 months because we understood that the impact, this was a future story project. Something along the Eisenhower was a bit more scaled back, but it was our kitchen sink project with you know, stereoscopic rendering, spatial audio, and so that took us a little bit longer. But typically what we aim is anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks for a VR project.
So wow, you did a lot of stuff. Spatial audio sounds really interesting. What kind of equipment are you guys using, and what kind of budget are you looking at for, like, if some news organization would like to start doing this? I mean, I know everyone says, oh, all you have to do is buy one of these little Samsung things to get started, which is kind of true. But I mean, to do the kind of things you're doing, I imagine you've got a decent amount of specialized stuff.
We do now. You know, most of the stuff I think could be considered prosumer at this point.
Okay.
You know, we've been fortunate enough that we've been working within virtual reality and augmented reality for about 5 years now. And what we've noticed is early on, the equipment was very cumbersome, you know, having to manually stitch stuff, the images together to create that seamless spherical image. But for us now, and I think compared to where folks can get into it now, the costs are lower, the tools are much easier to use now. To distribute, it's the information's out there now, as opposed to being early on, it's trying to figure things out as the platform is growing. And I still think that there's plenty of opportunities for growth, which is great. But it really just comes down to what are the tools that are available to us that you know, other smaller news organizations might be able to leverage as well to come up with a quality that's fairly decent.
Glad you mentioned distribution. I'm really curious, like, how has that changed? But also, like, where do you see the best response from someone? Like, what are they, you know, what app does the person have to be using? What device should they be on in terms of, like, when they are most susceptible or like most accepting of that kind of experience?
So
I guess where do you find your audience responding the most to these kind of things?
So for the two interactive pieces that we've created, the Eisenhower VR project and the Wall project, they were both exclusive to the HTC Vive. And the reason why is we understood that we wanted, you know, room scale, being able to walk around. So it was very specific. We played to the strengths of that platform.
Although that really limits the audience.
It does. We understood that. But what we were aiming for is we changed our goals, and we weren't necessarily aiming for audience, you know, the size of the audience, but more along the lines of engagement time. How deep into the story did someone go? And we had noticed, you know, comparing Eisenhower VR to the Wall project, with what we had learned between the two, our thinking was a bit different. I mentioned UX kind of thinking and design to figure out, you know, how can we make this a much more seamless experience for the user, and we met those goals within there. As far as other platforms go, you know, we've distributed we had our app on Google Daydream. We've got VR integrated into the USA Today app, and we've noticed some pretty good engagement with those. But really, it still comes down to what's the story? Is it better with 360 video? If it's 360 video, we'll aim for you know, the typical, you know, distribution platforms, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, our own native app, and through desktop and mobile web. So really
do you put out slices of that on other places, like maybe a sample of the 360 experience on Facebook or some other platform, so that there's some discovery there, or like how else do you handle it? And also, I have no idea, like how does an HTC Vive owner even get aware of that this is even there?
This is what's great about being able to, working within the USA Today network, is we've got the support to help promote some of the projects that we're working on. So with the HTC user, that is, as soon as we get the stuff up and available on the Vive port, for example, we'll kind of promote it via the social channels. So it's hoping that folks kind of are aware of it that way. We understand, it might not be as big as you might find, let's say, promoting, but that's why we leverage Facebook and YouTube for snippets of, let's say, a 360 video or component. It's also editing a trailer that we can, publish with the traditional long form story, such as The Wall. So working with different teams, we kind of figure out where we might be able to kind of build that audience, at least direct them. And if they don't have access to a HTC Vive, perhaps they're there's an opportunity for them to at least be interested in it, to guide them to someone who might have it so they could try it out. But we also understand that not everyone can get that fully immersive experience.
Why just the Vive? Was it a deal you did with HTC, or was it?
No, for us it was just the story we were looking to tell. We really wanted folks to feel as if they had the opportunity to walk around these environments. Speaking to The Wall, when they're standing outside of Tecate and they see a 12-foot high steel beam fence, there's something powerful in VR to being able to walk around, feeling as if you're actually standing on these packed dirt roads with the wind rustling and being kind of narrated and guided through that experience. Or standing within Big Bend National Park, where you've got these massive cliffs, above you. So you're standing in kind of low depth water, and that sense of immersion. We felt as if there was a bigger opportunity for the story we were looking to tell on the HTC Vive.
So we've talked a lot about VR and 360. AR is obviously a big deal. I would argue bigger than VR these days, at least to most consumers. What have you done in sort of that respect? When is AR appropriate for storytelling, if at all?
Yeah, so for us, we decided to do some exploration around what augmented reality experiences we could create from a storytelling perspective a little over a year ago. And we spent about 3 months or so just building small prototypes here and there, data visualizations, pulling in data feeds to power interactives, image targeting, so many different things. And what we ended up learning through that process was, okay, we can actually use this for a storytelling component. So our journey in AR, we had released an app almost this time last year, working with Florida Today, in which we created a 3-to-1 launch app. And that is an AR app for a user who's interested in watching space launches from Cape Canaveral. Okay. So you could see an actual, 3D, SpaceX, Falcon 9, take off in sync with real time with the actual rocket that's taken off in Cape Canaveral. So, we understand that the storytelling opportunities extend beyond just simply watching something animate in front of you. And I'd mentioned before, explore and discover. So we create moments of discovery through content annotations, being able to walk around, tap, learning a little bit more about, the stories that we're looking to tell. Last year, we also integrated a Unity-based AR player into the USA Today app. As former game developers, we understood that if we spend time kind of laying the foundation of what we can do in storytelling, it'll set us up for 2019. So we spent last year, exploring, laying the foundation, and we released, I think it was 4 different AR stories the second half of last year.
Interesting.
So we did an augmented reality trailer for a podcast called The City, which released in September, and that was just to essentially answer the question that folks might not have the answer to listening to podcasts, and that is, what does this community look like? How does this mountain of rubble look like? How does it sit next to the schools and the community? And we did that through AR and being able to guide the user around and kind of hint at what this story is. We've done one of our most exciting projects as a test to see if our foundation would work. We'd asked if we wanted to create an augmented reality experience for the Hurricane Florence, essentially a tracker. From concept to actual publish, we did it within 24 hours. And it was more of just, let's see if we can do this. Great engagement for us. It was a limited release, but we were able to prove out that the foundation we had set in place can support different storytelling types and different data visualizations, data-powered infographics, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I feel like with AR, there's different challenges because it sort of inherently, brings in the environment the person's in. So the stories you want to tell, I mean, going through sort of the checklist, using that kind of idea and applying it to AR, you'd have a much different checklist of like, is the story we're telling something that's sort of applicable, not necessarily universally, but to a reader where they are in some context, and weather is always has that component, and I feel like that's mostly for news organizations a lot of what they're doing. I think it was the Weather Channel. I'm sure you've seen it. They've done the videos where it's like, look, here's the hurricane rain, and you'll see the anchor sort of on a virtual street, and the rain goes up or whatever, the clouds change, and that seems to be like the way things are going. So is that, like, I guess I'm asking sort of what kind of do you think is that checklist for AR, and to when do you think it does sort of limit that medium more than VR or 360 video?
I don't. I actually feel as if it opens it up a little bit more.
Really?
What I find exciting about augmented reality, at least where we're at right now, is very much similar to where we were at 5 years ago with virtual reality. So let's figure this out. I'm not saying that we have the answers, but what we do have is a solid foundation to support the stories that we're looking to tell. But we also understand that not everything is going to work. But so we put in some time to kind of figure out, we'll have conversations with editorial teams, for example, of, they'll maybe pitch us a story that they'd like to work on and feel as if AR could be a component. We'll build a prototype, we'll have conversations with them, and if we feel as if it's not kind of hitting some of those check boxes that we're aiming for, perhaps it's not for that particular project, but perhaps something else. But we always use every opportunity as a building block to kind of learn and kind of expand. With what we had worked on last year, it was the Falcon 9 interactive with the live AR broadcast, and then moving on to, let's say, the city podcast. Very different experiences, very different stories. One was catered more towards, let's say, fans of kind of the new space race that's coming on. It's a little bit more casual. With the city, it's a bit more of, it's a powerful story. So what we didn't want to do, or what we don't want to do when it comes to AR, is treat the platform as a gimmick. Right. and create AR experience for the sake of doing it because we can. We want to make sure that we're telling a powerful story that folks feel as if they can walk away with an understanding through the interactive on their desk, in their location. So we do understand that, and this is where we're fortunate enough that we have got our toolbox for virtual reality. We're now building it for AR. So depending on the story, if it's not AR, perhaps it's VR. And that's kind of where we go back and forth. And we're fortunate enough that we can support both.
So obviously, CES, hotbed of all these technologies, what are you most excited about here at the show, and what do you think is the most potential to, it doesn't even have to be VR or AR, it's like what sort of mediums are you looking at to tell more stories?
So definitely very much interested in, some of the VR and AR. With the announcement yesterday with the HTC Vive with the eye tracking, I'm very much interested in what we might be able to do with that from a storytelling perspective. The Cosmos as well as a newer headset device. The Oculus Quest, I'm very much interested in trying that out for sure. The AR, I'm very much interested in just seeing what folks are doing with the technology and the platform. And as we were talking earlier, very much interested in finding out a little bit more about tools for AI, voice activation. What might we be able to leverage from that perspective for a story, if at all possible. But what really excites me most about technology is seeing the convergence of all of those coming together. And I think that's years off, but that's what I'm excited about, and we'll see where things go. And I think this is a good place to kind of get a hint at where things might be heading.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for dropping by and giving us the lowdown on what USA Today is doing in this stuff. Do you think the audience will ever, especially for 360 and whatever, is ever going to get to a point where it seems to, obviously still pretty niche, you're obviously very specialized, very early days. When do you think it's going to be like you've passed some critical mass and like it's really arrived?
We're getting early hints now with the projects we've released. With engagement times, which is great. We've noticed audience growth with each project that we've released. I really do think it's going to come down to just folks knowing about it is the best way I can put it. And I know that's a very much a challenge, but I expect within the next couple of years we're going to start seeing that massive audience towards AR. When it comes to VR, I think it's going to continue to slowly grow. I'm very excited about Quest as a kind of a higher end, low cost device. But I think that's going to be an interesting path and see where things go from there.
Great stuff. Ray Soto with USA Today. Thanks very much for coming by.
Thanks much.